Good morning, all. Welcome to Global DevOps online conference. We will start now. Thanks for everyone joining this session. I know many people are joining from their home, and two locations we set up the meeting rooms for some of the corporate and some of the outsiders from the location. So one is Belgium and another one is Singapore. Thank you for the participants who joined Belgium in your room. I heard like more than 70 people joined there, and in Singapore, 20 plus people join in the conference rooms. Thank you for all the participants. I know many people joined from India, from their home, and then Singapore, and then many regions. Thank you, and happy learning for today from your home and then from the conference rooms. Thank you. And today, what we are going to go through. So the first in 3 minutes, you are going to hit with the learning of DevOps duality and theory of constraint. It's a keynote speaking session, and this session is going to be given by Mark Smalley, and Mark is from Netherlands, and he is going to talk about the DevOps duality and theory of constraint, which is very interesting topic. And I'm happy to have Mark here. And the very important one which I have to mention here is when I was in Netherlands for Phoenix project, simulation project. So Mark was a trainer, and he gave a lot of insights about the DevOps and then the IT the paradigms. So that was very interesting to me. So thanks, Mark, for accepting as a keynote speaker.
It's my pleasure.
Thanks, Mark. So the next session is Humbus DevSecOps from Maris from J&J Belgium. And 11 o'clock, we will have a session DevOps pipeline monitoring from Pon Pragas. He is working for Standard Chartered from Singapore. And 11:30 Singapore Indian time, shift left testing in DevOps way from Srinikota. And 2 o'clock, blameless DevOps from Abhishek Chowdhury. And 12:30, AWS for disaster recovery from Avinash Balasubramaniam. And 1 o'clock, establishing a secure and scalable DevOps pipeline, the AWS way, from Gabe Golab. He is from AWS. He's working for AWS, and he is from Singapore. And 1:30, we are going to end the session with the DevOps or DIOps, need of the hour, from Koti Reddy Bhavanam. So he is from India. So thank you for joining. And I'm not going to take much time. Let me give it to Mark. So as I already mentioned about the Mark. So Mark is a IT paradigmologist, and he is more focused on DevOps now. And as I mentioned, he is expert in DevOps Phoenix project simulation workshop, and he is ambassador in many the movements, especially the DASA, the DevOps Agile development skill sets. So directly I'm giving to Mark. Mark, I'm going to make you as a host, and the floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much. Right. Could you please confirm that you can see my screen now?
No, Mark, not yet. Could you share your screen?
I'm trying to. Oh, I think it's coming up now. What about this?
Yes, Mark, I'm able to see it.
Oh, excellent. Great. Thank you very much. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, great pleasure to join you from the Netherlands, just out Amsterdam, where I've been living for about 40 years after being born in the UK, in London. And it's a fascinating topic, the DevOps, and I do regard it as one of the most powerful paradigms that I've come across in the IT world. A paradigm meaning a way of looking at things. And I think DevOps is a radically different way of looking at our IT world. I fulfill, as you can see on the left-hand side here, various roles. One of which I think the most relevant one, the two most relevant ones are the global ambassador role for the DevOps Agile Skills Association, and also the being associated with GamingWorks' business simulation, the Phoenix project. Now, please feel free to connect with me either on LinkedIn or whatever. My contact details are there. And I won't introduce myself anymore. I like the content to speak for itself. So let's move on. Just referring to the Phoenix project and the trainer session that I hosted. This was how I got involved with this event and DevOps Union. So very grateful for that. That's nice, fond memories of that session that we had together. The DevOps paradox, as I like to present it here, is that despite being based on the theory of constraints, which is all about discovering and elevating the weakest link in a value chain, DevOps is just part of the IT value chain. And if you're not careful, an investment in DevOps could result in sub-optimization, and you certainly wouldn't want that. So this is what I want to explore today, a broader value chain, and identifying where the actual weakest link is so that we can work on that. I'm sure several of you will be already familiar with the theory of constraints. I'm not confident that Eli Goldratt invented the concept, but he certainly developed it and promoted it very successfully in his excellent book, The Goal, which I can recommend. I recall several years ago starting off reading it in the afternoon, and it's such a gripping tale. I think I was finished at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It's really quite an excellent story about how you can get misled, certainly in large organizations where you're working in silos. You think you're doing great things in your own silo, and possibly you are, but you're neglecting to look at the whole picture. The premise is that any organizational system is limited by just a few constraints, and the idea is that you should identify the goal of the organization, the chain of activities that lead to that goal, and identify weaknesses within the chain of activities. The premise, as stated on the last point here, is that a strengthened weakest link will lead to improved flow, and in so doing, you'll increase the throughput through the whole system, because that's really what it's all about. Now, one of the primary concepts that you'll find to illustrate this idea is what is called drum buffer rope. And here you can see some hikers, some walkers walking together as a group. And in this little group here, the third one is the slowest one in the group, and here's the drum. He beats the drum, and in so doing indicates the tempo, the speed with which everybody should walk. So everybody tries to keep up with the slowest link in the chain, the weakest link in the chain. The rope ensures that the people in front don't walk too fast. And there's the concept of a buffer in between everybody, because the speed of the individuals varies. So people will go a little bit faster or a little bit slower. So you need a buffer to take up the slack. But the concept is identify the weakest link, try and elevate the weakest link, improve the weakest link as far as you can, but then organize around the weakest link. That is the primary concept. It's pretty obvious, but it's something that we often neglect in practice. Now, with that very brief introduction, but I hope hopefully sufficient for this goal, I'd like to move on to how does this fit into the DevOps space, and I'd like to use my concept of what I call a business IT business value stream. So IT is sandwiched between two business layers, the business prequel to IT activities and the business sequel to IT activities. And I'd like to illustrate that with this, with a couple of diagrams. This is the first one, with starting with somebody who has a job to be done, and various resources depicted down the bottom there: people, machines or robots, and inanimate objects symbolized by that white box there, dynamically combining to do things, being applied to do a job. And the concept of a job to be done, I've borrowed from Professor Clayton Christensen, who you might know from The Innovator's Dilemma. He says you should focus not particularly on the traditional market segmentation of, for instance, young mothers with children. That could be a market segment, probably not for DevOps, but for another market. But you should focus on the job to be done. That's the most important thing. So focusing on the job to be done. Somebody has a job to be done and needs a product or a service to help him or her doing that job. A provider provides the service and product, again using resources, people, machines, inanimate objects to do work, perform work to deliver the service or product. And in doing that work, they need information to guide them in the decisions that they take on which activities to do in order to produce their services and products. And as you probably know, if you studied information technology, the function of information is to reduce uncertainty. This goes back to Shannon and Weaver in 1948. It's all about uncertainty reduction. So although we talk about information technology, IT, we could also equally be talking about URT, uncertainty reduction technology. This is just reframing what we do. We are in the business of reducing uncertainty so that business people can take better decisions and act better on those decisions. Now, getting into the technical stuff, in order to get information, we can use IT service. Obviously, not all information comes from digitized data, but much does. So we use IT service to gain access to applications, data, and infrastructure. Together, I think you could call these an information system, where the IT provider, and whether it's an internal or an external provider or a combination of both, which is the usual combination, they perform work on the information system in order to develop and operate systems and provide IT service so that the business gets information to do their work so that they can help somebody doing a job. This is how money is made. So this is just the primer to explain. Oh yeah, and by the way, you can see if you look at the middle, and the provider is also a consumer because they consume service from the IT provider, and similarly, the consumer on the right-hand side is probably also a provider to other parties. And the IT provider on the left-hand side is also a consumer because they consume IT services and products from other parties. But taking a number of those major concepts there, putting them on the left-hand side, starting up top with the business and ending down bottom with IT, service, work, information, and the pivot, IT service in the middle, really, giving access to applications and infrastructure, we can say that business people make investments in information and technology in order to improve the way they work and deliver better, faster, cheaper business services. In order to make that investment, they have to specify their information requirements, functional, non-functional requirements, so that IT service can be designed, so that applications can be developed and deployed and run. And in order to develop, deploy, and run applications, you need infrastructure. So infrastructure facilitates development, deployment, and running operations of applications. Up until now, we have probably spent a lot of money on getting an IT system up and running. But absolutely no value is delivered until the users consume the IT service, in other words, use the applications, interpret the information. And just think about this: how confident are you that the users you're familiar with in organizations actually understand the information well and interpret it correctly? Because only when you interpret the meaning of the information can you act on decisions and hopefully get some of the value that was intended in the first place. So that closes the loop. That's the return on investment that you hopefully get. Now, if you look carefully on the right-hand side, where I've been giving you some textual explanation of what I just said, you'll notice a gap between design IT service and develop applications. That's because when IT is doing its job, there's a whole world going on in the user department, getting them ready to use the new or changed IT service in terms of authorizations, in terms of procedures to use the systems, in terms of training of users, so that they can use the systems effectively, interpret the information, and act on that information. Now, this is a pretty broad value stream. So let's start putting DevOps in there, because that's the goal that I want to achieve. That we have an understanding of where DevOps fits into this space. And I'm somewhat reluctant to define DevOps because it's very much an emergent practice movement. But I'm basing this definition. I'm fairly comfortable with it, basing it on what you can gain from the Phoenix project, which you'll probably be familiar with, the companion book, the DevOps Handbook, and also a definition that Gene Kim, one of the authors of both books, gave. And I like to define it as as you can see here, a professional movement. I like the word movement, based on an emerging set of insights, cultural, organizational, technical insights, for fast delivery of resilient IT services. I think that pins it down, fast delivery of resilient IT services, but at the same time, leading to a healthy workforce and bottom line results. I think this sort of nails the basic understanding of DevOps. But let's put it in that value chain there. There are, and taking the DevOps guidance, which is about as good as it gets, the DevOps Handbook guidance, in which there are 67, I've counted them, 67 technical practices giving you guidance how to develop, but in particular deploy and run applications, how you can create a loosely coupled architecture which enables you to work in relatively independent small teams without having too much interference between the two. And it also comprises much broader principles and cultural norms which can be applied outside the IT function, probably in any function you like. These are very generic and very valuable principles. So this leads us to what I like to call DevOps duality, because on the one hand, you could talk about DevOps as very much continuous centric in the sense of being focused on continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous deployment. But on the other hand, you could see DevOps in a much broader context when you're applying the principles and the cultural norms outside of that narrow, focused, IT-oriented area. You could apply it to a much broader area. So the message here is be cognizant of the fact that when people talk about DevOps, they can be applying the concept in various ways. Now, looking at the speed with which things can be delivered, the speed with which you can get return on the business investment, lead time analysis, and using this business IT value stream as a backdrop, I'd like to take a look at the typical DevOps metrics that are used, and in particular the second one here. And you can find these both in the DevOps Handbook, but also in the excellent annual State of DevOps report, which I think you should be aware of, because that's excellent guidance. And they focus and look at how the questions, they've asked thousands of organizations about these metrics. They ask the organizations, for your primary application or service, how long does it take to get from code commit to code successfully running in production, from code commit to code successfully running in production. And they give you examples of, I think we've got some I've got some background noise here. Could Vibe K5 note please unmute yourself? Yeah, I'll continue. There's a bit of echo because somebody's not muted. Vibe K5, could you please mute yourself? Okay, well, I'll continue. And here you can see the results of the research that they've done, and you can compare your own performance with these statistics and establish whether you're a high, medium, or low IT performer with regard to these aspects. I don't want to dwell on the actual metrics, but just the definition, the lead time for changes, because if we apply that to this business IT business value stream here, you can see that it is very much limited to the back end of development, when the developer has done the development and commits the developed code into the repository. How long does it take from that moment to get the code up and running in production? So that's a pretty limited area. Taking a broader picture and thinking about the weakest link in your value chain, how long does it take to get from to design the IT service, to design the applications, to code the applications, to organize the user department? How long does it take to, of course, together with the business, to specify their needs? And more on the back end, how long does it take for users to use IT effectively, to understand the functionality of the systems and how they're used, and used particularly in a business context as well, and how long does it take them to interpret the information so that they can use it effectively in their business activities? Now, finally, going back to the left-hand side here, this is something I find really fascinating. How long does it take business people to see an opportunity to invest in information and technology and to decide upon that? Because I think that is often a very long time. And just to take an example, which is not really a business example, but more in the IT world, but I think that will illustrate the point pretty well. Just think about your own organization or one that you're familiar with. When did you start, or your organization start, to adopt Agile? Suppose that it was 5 years ago. Well, if you think about when Agile emerged as a movement, as a practice, that was around the turn of the century. So that means that you had a period, about 10 years, of ignorance of the fact that that Agile was something that you could adopt, or you'd heard about it but you were complacent. You thought, well, that's for other kind of organizations, that's not for us. And then you move into doubt. Should we be considering it or not? But then you delay, you procrastinate, and then finally you panic and you think, gosh, we've got to go Agile as well. And this could take years. So my suggestion is, think about the whole value chain, and think in particular whether you, of course, it depends on whether you are in the position to help business people improve this opportunity seeking and decision making. But what if you could help business people to be aware of opportunities, probably technology driven opportunities, that might speed up this part by years, in addition, of course, to the improvements you can make in other sections. But it's all about discovering where the weakest link is in the chain. Now, suppose your weakest link is in the IT part of this diagram here, the value chain, the value stream. Then you could certainly look at, and I'm taking the DASA competence framework here. You could look at these competencies that you could improve to help you improve the weakest link on the IT side. I'm not going into these in detail, but just to make you aware of them. But if, on the other hand, you discover that your weakest link is on the business side, on the top end, on the specification and the consumption, the use of IT services, then you should be thinking more about improving your competencies with respect to business analysis or business value optimization. And referencing, in addition to the DASA competence framework, a framework, the BSL framework, that I'm also associated with as ambassador at the ASL BSL Foundation, we've developed this framework which gives guidance to to business people, how to deal with IT. So you could say it's the business's guide to IT, because this is a dance that you have to dance with two partners. It takes two to tango. And these frameworks here, the competence framework and the BSL framework, give business people improved capabilities to deal with their part of the bargain. So that's something to consider, where your weakest link is. This is something, and I'm starting to round it off now, coming up to the hour or the half hour. This is a free DevOps competence quick scan, which DASA has made available quite recently. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago it was released. You can see the link here. And by answering, I think it's 24 questions, you can get a pretty good feeling of how competent you are in the competence model, resulting in that little graph down the bottom there. So be aware of that, try that. You might find that useful. So summarizing the talk, what I'd encourage you to do is take a business IT business perspective. So when you listen to the following presentations in this conference, think about, where do you position this in the whole value chain? Try and discover the weakest link in your organization. Try and elevate it as much as you can, but then organize around it, because that is the part that will beat the drum, and there's no point going quicker than the weakest link in the value chain. That's just sub-optimization. So with that, if you want any more of this IT paradigmology nonsense that I've been talking about, feel free to take a look at my website, which is depicted here, with, on the writing section, my own work, but more significantly in the learning section, the topics I'm interested in and the teachers, the people who I've learned from, and the researching section. I've done a bit of research on a couple of topics, and there's just one I'd like to draw your attention to, and this will be the final slide in 1 minute's time. I did some research recently amongst 18 thought leaders in my international network, asking them the question, what do you consider the most fundamental things that people should be investing in to get their IT function running right before they start building on that? And they came up with a lot of points which I've summarized in an article on LinkedIn called Resilient Foundations. You can find that on my LinkedIn page, and I've summarized the points here on the right hand side. I'm not going to go through them with you, but you will see lots of them that are related to DevOps in here. So with that, I'm going to relinquish control and hand it back to the organizers. I hope this was useful to you, and I certainly hope that you'll get more out of the whole day. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Mark. It was a very learning session, and really it's a good session. And thanks to talk about the DASA. Can I have one question from the participants?
Certainly.
If I'm not hearing none, let me ask one question, Mark. Mark, you mentioned about the DASA competency framework. So could you please give more details about that, and how as a participants we can learn about that?
Yeah, certainly. The best source to go to is the DASA website, the DASA Agile Skills.org, where you'll find plenty of information about the competence framework. It comprises both skills and knowledge, and particularly in the DevOps area, it's not only about the knowledge that you need, but the skills that you have. So I look at DevOpsAgileSkills.org. Look for the competence model. And if you can't find it, feel free to get in touch with me as their ambassador. I'll be happy to provide you with information about that. But it certainly, I find it a very useful tool.
Thanks, Mark. So that's one more question. So many people asked about the Phoenix project simulation game. They asked about like what is this about and what is the outcome we can learn from the Phoenix project simulation. So Mark, do you give some comments about that?
Yeah, certainly. It's a very interactive game usually played by about 10 or 12 people who assume roles which are business roles, development roles, and operations roles. And in the game, which takes either half a day or a day, depending on the format, they play these roles and confront themselves with the typical challenges you find in a DevOps environment. And we call it experiential learning. So it's learning by doing. So in addition to the cognitive training that you do to understand knowledge, this is about developing your skills. And it's been done many times around the world, and people have got a lot of value out of it. You'll find more about that also on my website, smally.it, on the consulting section. You'll find something about the Phoenix project, but take a look at the gamingworks.nl, NL as in Netherlands. There you'll find more detail about that, or get in touch with me.
Thanks, Mark. Mark, there is one question in the chat from the Singapore office. So they asked like, what is IT? Let me read that question. IT paradigmologist. Mark is mentioned as IT paradigmologist. What is that?
Yeah. I invented that job title myself. If you break down the word paradigmology, it's about the study of paradigms. So I very much like to study IT paradigms. So which is why I call myself an IT paradigmologist. And I find it, as I mentioned at the beginning, DevOps is an excellent paradigm. I think one of the most powerful, a different way of looking at IT. And I find these things fascinating, but really it's just a marketing trick to draw a bit of attention to my activities, the IT paradigmologist. But thanks for asking about that.
Yeah, that was the question from Singapore office, Mark.
Thanks once again, everybody, and have fun today. Learn a lot.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for giving your valuable time as a keynote speaker. And thank you for your time, and have a good day.
Pleasure.
Let us move to the next session. So the next session is Humbus DevSecOps from Maris. Good morning, all. Okay, so now the next session is about Humbus DevSecOps. You might be seeing the slides, so you might be confused, like what is that Humbus DevSecOps? So I thought about the theory of constraint. I attended many conferences, and many times people work on the improvement which is not really a constraint, right? So we have a different way of perception about the constraint also. And also the movement, many movements are created, but these movements are not worked on the constraint. They're working on something which is different than the constraint, or it is not the immediate constraint. So one of the constraint which always think about is its alignment, the alignment and the collaboration between the different movement. So that's what this hum, which is a human, and then the business, and then development, and then security, and then operation. It is not going to be stopped in Humbus DevSecOps. There are many things around it, around Humbus DevSecOps. But the immediate constraint is alignment between the Humbus DevSecOps. So that's what I thought about it, and I wrote a simple little book, and it was published in Amazon. And you can read it with more details. But let me jump into the what is that. So before jump into that, I will just give the overview about who am I. So my name is Maurice Prabhakaran. So I'm working on Johnson Johnson from Belgium. I'm an agile coach, and also I'm focusing on DevOps. So agile and DevOps coach. Yeah, with that, let me jump into my the core topic now. So a little bit history about before going to the DevOps concepts or Humbus DevOps concept. So if you see the history, uh, a decade before, you can see 1930 to 1950, the many the movement or many the concept or innovation came up during that time, especially during the World War times, right? The project management evolves. You might hear about the PERT model, program evolution and review technique, and you might hear about the critical path method, right? So there are many methods started during that because we have a problem. What is the problem? The problem is all about the World War, and whoever move fast, they're going to win. So there are many methods came in, and it was very successful during that time. And 1950 to 2000, you can see around 1980 or 90, we can say like there are the manufacturing era came in, right? That's what many methods, the quality system, Toyota production system comes with um, many new way of working. So the way of working changes from 1950 to 1980, right? So so that the manufacturing industry, when we do a mass production, we learn a lot of new methods, especially new way of project management, and then the waterfall approach, and then the new way of developing product development. But in 1970, from manufacturing era, we just moved to knowledge-based working, right? So there are computers and then software. That era starts. So we have a problem. That's a waterfall approach. It's giving a lot of better things. It's giving a lot of values, but we have a little bit of constraint. So how to remove that constraint? So people come up with, the leaders come up with a new way of working. So that new way of working is like Scrum, and then DSDM, Crystal Clear, Kanban. So there are many new way of working came in. Still we have a constraint. So that's what the other, still we are trying to remove the constraint by different way of working. In 2001, we have Agile manifesto where all the Agile leaders join together and they come up with an Agile manifesto, right? Even like 2001, we have a lot of methods and Agile manifesto. Still, we have a constraint, right? So that's why like the second era is started. A third era is started now. In 2007, Patrick DeBois started this IT value chain, and then people talk about the DevOps, and we have a movement of DevOps days, which started in Ghent, which is just 30 miles away from where I'm living now. So the DevOps day started here. So then DevOps days, you can see like all over the world, which is happening now, right? 2011, you can see like industry leading software vendors increase market presence with the enterprise class DevOps tools. There are many tools came in. There are many tools you can see they're projecting as a DevOps tools, right, from 2011. And 2013, you can see Jane Kim, who released the Phoenix Project, the book. And from 2016, we started a movement, a DevOps Union movement, and this movement is more about helping the people to learn about the DevOps and beyond DevOps too. So there's a little bit history about how the evaluation starts, but still we have a constraint, right? So what we are trying to solve is remove that constraint. That's the key part for us. Always there is a constraint, and that constraint need to be solved by new way of working, right? So we have a lot of new way of working, like DevOps, and then we have Agile, and then we have in Agile we have different methods. So we are trying to use the different methods, way of working, and trying to solve the problem. One of the key challenge for us is removing the main constraint. You can see here the constraint is the exclamatory one. So if you don't solve that constraint, the flow is not going to happen, right? The flow of work, or the flow of water is not going to work. So if you work on the other constraints, still you are going to have the same problem, right? So first solve the first constraint, then go ahead of the next one. So today's world, in today's IT knowledge work, you can see this, typically you can see this model. Like we'll discover, and then we'll prioritize, and then we'll find out the backlog, and then we'll prioritize, and then we'll do development, and then we will build and deploy, and then we'll do testing, and then we do a little bit of release control, and then we'll do monitoring, and this will be in an iterative model. The whole this thing will be in iterative model. But in this model, what I'm seeing is many organizations or many clients, they have a challenge in any one of this alignment. There might be a disalignment or misalignment between the development and build and DevOps. They might not have the new way of working, or they might have a constraint in testing. They might not have a continuous testing, or they might not have a production-like environment, right? So that's one of the constraint maybe for one organization. So that need to be removed. So you can see an analogy. So the cycling is very famous in Belgium, so that's why we use this analogy. So you can see like the many cyclists who is racing, they just camp up in one area. It's a constraint, right? So this constraint need to be removed. How we can remove that constraint? So that's a new way of DevOps pyramid. So always in a pyramid, the foundation is the base. So DevOps principles. So what are these DevOps principles? DevOps principle is based on the Lean principle and Agile principles. It consists of Agile manifesto and the Lean principles, which is the core foundation. If you don't follow the principles, you will not get all the values which is specified in the state of art, the survey. Right? The next building is practices. So you might hear about a lot of practices, right? Continuous integration, continuous deployment, and continuous delivery, right? And pair programming and refactoring. There are a lot of practices. So you need to have the base of principles, and then you need to have the practices. Then you can use the tools. Then you will reap the benefits. So one of the constraint which I'm seeing people, especially the organization, they will go directly into tools, saying that like we are going for DevOps. So we are not solving the constraint. We are solving the constraint which is in the future. It is not going to improve your flow, right? So first focus on your principles, next focus on your practices, then focus on your tools, then you will get the benefits. And one of the important, the missing part in many projects or programs or organizations, not shifting security into left. So many people look into security at the end, right? So you can see like 100 developers. If you have one program, if you have 100 developers, you'll have 10 operation people, and then you'll have only one security person. Right? I'm not saying like this model is wrong. It might be right, because you can have one security person, but you need to have that security thinking to all the developers. So that way you will have the shared knowledge among, or alignment between the whole the flow, right? So one of the missing block I'm seeing here is like missing the security part in the early. So that's why you might hear about the DevSecOps movement. And in DevSecOps movements, there is a manifesto. I'm not going to read it, so you can learn this by going to devsecops.org. But the first one is leaning in over always saying no, and data and security science over fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Right. So always like always there should be a balance, and depends on the project and program. You can look into how much secure you need to have. Right. So the funda is don't miss out the security part. Shift left the security part. And another, the second missing part, or second constraint which I'm seeing is the misalignment of business, right? People are doing, the people use the new way of working, of using Scrum or Kanban or any other agile methods, but they are not aligning with the business people or business context. So many organizations, they have a business people as a separate team, right? We are talking about DevOps, yes. So let's say like a development and operation, they are working together and they have the common objects. But if a business is having a separate team, and if they are not aligned, if they don't have the common goal, and again, this is you are not going to get the flow. Right? That's another one of the constraints which I'm seeing many organizations where they are combining technology teams, making development and operation as a one team, and business people are working in as a separate silos, right? So it's not aligned. So that's another the constraint which I'm seeing. So DevOps movement is fine, but apart from that, security is very important. More than security, the business alignment is very important. So this alignment will help you to move fast, to improve the flow. So these are the missing kata. The last one, which is always missed out, right? I can say 90% of the organization it is missed out, and even the Patrick, the boys who is who have this DevOps days conferences, who created this DevOps days conferences. So he mentioned DevOps is a human problem. I totally align with them, right? It's a human problem. DevOps is more about the human. So the human part is always missing out. Humans are not machines. We are something more. We have feelings and experience. Material comforts are not sufficient to satisfy us. We need something deeper human affection, right? So we are all humans, right? So that's always missed out. And people aren't your problem. Your problem is that your work system and process don't allow people inside, right? So I was in DevOps Days Amsterdam last year. There I heard about this human ops movement. So I was impressed by that, and I talked to them. And you can read that at humanops.com. You can read this kind of manifesto. I was totally impressed by that. I'm just going to read some of them. Humans build and fix systems. Humans get tired and stressed, and they feel happy and sad. This is very important one. The second one, which I always like it. So people are saying, hey, we are into DevOps, or we are into Scrum model, but still they are humans. They might get tired and stressed out. So you need to have some some way of thinking to make them unstressed, right? So if you're sprinting, right? So even if you are running in a marathon, if you make it as a sprinting, you might get tired, right? You need to re-energize. So that re-energization need to be happen, right? And human issues are system issues, right? And well, and humans need to switch off on again. That's very important. The fourth one is also which very important. Human needs to switch off and on again, right? So that's what like the very important part here is like Humbus, DevOps, DevSecOps. The humans is always missed out in many organizations. So that's the key part for our improving the flow. So I gave an overview about the Humbus DevSecOps, but I wrote a little book about that, where I will give a lot of nuances about the human, the psychologist, and also the human in agile world, and human or knowledge worker in the DevOps world. So lot of insights here. Uh, so if you that's about the overview about the Humbus DevOps, DevSecOps. So if you have any questions, I have 5 more minutes, so you can ask me. Hearing
Maris,
none, yeah, please go ahead.
Maris, you talked about DevOps is more of an human problems. Can you give us one or two top human problems that you encounter on a day-to-day basis, Maris?
Yes, sure. So, so just now I mentioned about like sprinting. So the people, I'm just giving only one example. There are many examples which is I mentioned in this book. The problem which I'm seeing is like people moving to agile and then they sprinting it. So when they're sprinting, uh, the team the team is the team itself, they have to think they're humans. So most of the time they are loading themselves in the sprint plan, they're loading themselves with 110 percentage of their work, right? So so humans, that's what, like, so the agile leaders and even the team, they have to think they are the humans, and they need to have the off and on and off. They will get tired. So you can see the human off, the fourth problem. Human needs to switch off and on again, because today's world is not about the mechanical work. It's more about knowledge work. Knowledge work need your human brain, and human brain will become tired, right? It become, when it become tired, you will not get any innovation, or you will not get any a new way of thinking, right? So that's one of the problem which you have to look into that. And even in sprint use, even if you are doing a sprint planning and release planning, make sure or make it visible to everyone, saying that humans needs to switch off and again, right? That will help you, or that will induce you more innovation.
Well said, Maris. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm giving back to the DevOps Union. Okay, so next topic is DevOps pipeline monitoring from Pon Pragas. Uh, Pon Pragas, I am going to make you as a host, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Maris. Can you able to see my screen? Or?
Yes, Pragas, I'm able to see that. See your screen.
Okay, good. So, okay, thanks. So I'm sitting at my screen now. Okay, yeah, I'm set. So thanks, DevOps Union, for giving me this opportunity to present my topic, which is DevOps pipeline monitoring and metrics. So I think last time I have done the same thing in Chennai and Bangalore, almost a month or back actually. So then I got curious to give this presentation to wider audience as well, right? So yeah. About me, I am in this software industry for almost 15 years now, and I am in the different areas of the industry, which is from project management to support, service management, and now it is I'm more towards the leading a complete DevOps, teams, right, within SCB, right. So this is my background, and I'm going to explain more about how the monitoring and the metrics is going to work in the very specific to the DevOps, right? So yeah. Okay, so this is my agenda today. It's more like measuring DevOps, how we are going to succeed in measuring the DevOps, as an overview, and why metrics, what's the need of the metrics, and how metrics are created, and which metrics we need to work on, and which metrics people want to see, and dive into the pipeline. So the pipeline, without a pipeline we cannot have a metrics at all, right? So and tools which can be, mostly it's recommendations basically. So it's variety of tools available, and a variety of the custom stuff is also available. Then it's up to the team and organization to select which they are, right? Okay, so this is the overall agenda which I am going to cover, right? So at the end of this session you can ask me questions if you think you have. Okay, so I think that if you look on this, I think immediately everyone can able to recognize like this is an agile board, right? So so why agile actually? Before metrics monitoring and everything, why agile? So see, before going to DevOps, also like the agile came in and completely changed the software industry itself as such. Uh, as we all know, like we are in the waterfall model where we will get the requirement, and we do the analysis. We go for the development testing, and go to the production. So this is all straight process, right? So yeah, even if there is any change, then actually there is a feedback loop in between. Then there is a heavy type of investments which has to be done in case of any corrections. But after agile came in, those things has gone away, where we broke down all these big chunk of requirements into smaller pieces and write down as a stories that to actually business driven stories, which in a specific format, as well as TDD based developments, right? So all the big chunks is now like smaller stuff, and we are running as a scrum teams, which pickups stories on the weekly, and run these scrums for 2 weeks, and it will move to the done, right? The whole thing is perfectly fine in terms of agile, but where the DevOps sits here, right? So that's what actually people will ask, where what's the difference between agile and DevOps, right? Agile is more how we are going to get the requirement, and putting into this backlog, and how quickly are we going to deliver things. But actually, if we want to achieve the delivery, without DevOps, agile cannot live at all, right? So even most of the organization whom I work with, as well as like I was talking to the people, they are saying, okay, we have successfully implemented the agile technology, agile manifesto. We are just gone through and created a complete agile team. Still our delivery has not came out at all. It's people are still working in the the previous way only. Just they will pick up the stories and do it, but still actually we don't have any pipeline in between which can able to deliver things immediately. So that's what but yeah, if that thing is there, then actually even the team is running an agile, that doesn't mean, right? One. And second thing is, so I was talking to so many teams. They are saying actually they will be doing a releases every month, right? And then your team is agile, but you are doing a releases every month or every quarter. Why is it? So they are saying actually, oh, okay, we don't want any failures in the production. In between actually so then how your features are going to be there in the production? Is it going to sit in your development environment or QA for almost this 1 month, or it's in 1 quarter? So you don't want that functionality to be in the product, and they say, oh, okay, that's a problem, right? The whole thing is a problem here, because they don't have a perfect pipeline which makes their development to be moved to production. Basically, like whatever commits. So yeah, okay, in terms of the Git terms, it's basically a developer is doing a commit, and that commit has to go to the production, right? So DevOps is the one, or the DevOps pipeline is the one which moves all these commits from the development branch to the production branch. So without DevOps, actually, we cannot have an agility at all, right? Or we will have the agility, but still with 10 or 20%, right? That most of the people agreed, right? So yeah. Right. So I think most of you guys have seen this one, quality WTS per minutes. People will say like, where is the code quality? Then search around the doors and see like, oh, okay, this is the code quality. But good code quality is you cannot find anywhere actually. If you even if you run an automated software, Sonar Cube or any other code coverage reports, right? You will not find anything like that. Maximum you can go up to 90%, but you will not find that, right? So the extensive amount of testing has to be invested in the in your pipeline to make sure your code is not flowing out. It's not more about how quality you are coding. Instead, it's more about how bug free you are coding, right? Yeah, that's what I thought of showing here. So yeah. So why I'm covering these things? You may be curious. You want to see metrics only, but say the basics of the metrics is what you are going to do metrics for, right? That's what I am saying. All these things, then you understand what the metrics is meant for, right? So every business is a software business now. If you go for retail, automobile, federal, healthcare, telecom, or any industry. Nothing is running without a software. So the whole industry, there is a big revamp which is happening where the complete industry is running with this software only. So how quickly are you going to produce the software? Then they are going to stay. I take fin industry. There are a lot of new guys coming in and creating their software saying like, we are the bank, just we are a digital bank, and can you start using our transaction services? Same way retail, right? You don't need a big space where you keep all the things. Instead, you keep everything in your warehouse and do it, right? So automobile, federal, healthcare, it's growing up. Whoever running a big hospital is not going to get money, but still a small websites which is giving doctors directory is going to get big money in billions, right? Telecom industry, same way actually, right? So WhatsApp or anything, chatting, everything is going as a software way. So software is eating the whole world, right? So every business is in a software business now. So do you really do a frequent deployment? So even if you are having a software in this much of industries, actually how frequently are we going to do the deployment, right? So we have to introduce the feature every day or every week to make sure people to get enthusiastic to use our industry. But how frequently are we going to give that new feature? Even if we fail with the old feature, we have to recover and create a new feature, that too actually with the shorter span. Then those companies are going to stay long, right? So what most of the this is basically based on some report, they are saying 25% of live here and 75% of live here. So most of A is like just 25%. Other company which is B is just 75%, which is which they are going to kick out from that industry at all, right? Okay, so now what's the challenge we have in this software business? One is the high cost, manually operated, lack of shared visibility, no repeatability, predictability, no traceability, inefficient infrastructure, and non-standard practices, right? So out of that, you can clearly see like three things are very well connected here. Inefficiency in infrastructure, that still we can manage it with the cloud, and non-standard practices, right? So those are all the things which are going to get rid because of these DevOps techniques as well as the pipelines and tools, right? Yeah. Okay, so I want to show some reports which has been released for the DevOps perspective. So I think most of you guys, whether you have gone to the Sudora report, Puppet report, or they are saying like their deployment frequency has increased by 30. Overall, they took an average saying 30x. Their deployment frequency has increased from 2015 to 2014 to 15. Right, same way, lead time, which is 200x, there is an improvement, and mean time to recover. So in case of any failures, actually how much time you are recovering back to the previous mode, that matters. 168%. Success rate, it's almost like 60x, 3x to 60x from 2015, right? So this is a report which is on 2015, but if you take the latest report, look at this. They have increased the deployment frequency by 200x, right? So if they have done a deployment one per week, actually now it is like almost like 50 per day, right? That much actually the things has modified. 24x faster builds and doing a deployment, and 3x lower failure rates, and 2500 shorter lead times, right? So yeah, these are, looking on the number of times, right? Then you will be wondering where your current project is, right? So this is basically an average that to actually taken from the top fintechs or e-commerce industries. Yeah. So how they are measuring this, or how from our perspective, how we are going to measure how efficient the pipeline is, that I'm going to cover next. Right. So before going to that, actually, some observations. Observations are the fundamental. You can't improve. You can't measure. If you are not measuring anything, then you are not doing. You can still say like, hey, my team is agile and my team is DevOps. Then if you go and talk to them, they will say, okay, we will do 2 releases per week. That to actually one releases will fail, and we will do repeated releases, right? So that to actually if you ask them, can you give me a report which covers that? No, they don't have any report. All of them has been keeping it manually, and their KPIs will not be available anywhere. This is what happening in legacy industry now, right? So it's basically observing the all new e-commerce companies and startups. They have all these DevOps mindset, and all of them are coming as a born cloud industry companies. Most of the industries which is legacy, they are not born cloud. They are trying to migrate to the cloud. So we have to learn it from the companies which has been born on cloud, and they are doing the DevOps, and how frequently they are doing the deployment, right? So why metrics now, right? So as I told, like, why metrics? It's again coming to the same story. Without metrics, we don't know where we are in the crowd, right? So what's the next step? Software is most important, quality and adaptive in case of. So two things which has to be taken care, which is the efficiency, the rate and cost per releases, and effectiveness, that is ability to add more value to the each and every feature. So these two things, if you keep it in mind, then actually the creating a metrics in this mindset will create more value for your team, right? Right. So best practices before even if we keep it in mind, we have to follow some best practices, which is objectivity, for more on focus on particular area, which is focus outcome, and identify predators, and watch signal to the noise ratio. So yeah, so if we keep these things in the mind, then actually creating the reports will not be that much difficult, right? So some more is value team performance and avoid metrics that can be game and shaming encourage. So this is more behavior driven, right? So after the metrics comes out, if you see like, oh, okay, this month I have 10 deployments, out of that 5 deployments has failed, then you can dig down and see like what's the reason of that 5 deployments failure. Then you should not be blaming the people saying that. So that it must be the other way. Actually, you don't have a perfect test cases which taken care of all your each and every area of your unit testing. That may be one thing. And second thing is your code quality. You are not checking your code quality at all, or your deployment scripts are not automated, right? So you are running manual manual database migration. So instead of blaming people, actually feedback loop is going to help. So getting the report and like finding where the problem is, and instead of blame gaming, just try to make your pipeline more efficient. That way actually the next problems will not happen in the pipeline, right? So these are the best practices which has to be followed before creating the before looking on and creating the reports, right? Yeah. So how to, this report has to be created automatic and abstractive, no, unobstructive, not only the production, one pane of glass, measurability and technology, right? So even this, if I say like, okay, I have to create a report, but actually, if can you go and check the Jenkins and get all the build information, right? So it's a manual, we are going in the DevOps mode, that to automated mode, then actually all the reports, all the data has to be centralized in one place where we have to pick and create the reports on their own, right? So that way actually it should be an automated report. So each and every team will have their own business case for creating the reports. That case, even if there is a standard templates available, we need to have a extensive number of way to create our own reports based on that particular business case, right? So that's what how actionable. It's more so based on the events, we how we can able to put back it in the feedback loop, accessible, how easily it is accessible, auditable, yes, that's inbuilt, customer sat and uptime. Uptime is more MTTR, and tickets closed, how many tickets has been closed, right? So these, all of them has to be kept in the mind, right? So types of the metrics, what type of metrics we are going to create, right? Internal, inside our measurement efficiency, it has to be more from the cost, time and material perspective. And second thing is the technical tech progress and product pipeline trend, how our pipeline is efficient, and measure of efficiency and resource consumption. It is more, all of them are internal components which has to be taken care. And second thing is external, which is outside in the measurement of effective value driven. So from the business stakeholder perspective, how you are going to give the add the value to the business by adding new feature. So that has to be taken care. Quality and usefulness, performance and business outcome. So at the end of the day, actually, business wants some efficiency or features which has to be added up. So it should be more business outcome based. And effectiveness and value delivery, it's more or less same what I told before, right? So next thing is the culture, objective and subjective trends in the team dynamics, right? So it's more from the mindset perspective, process overhead, trustworthiness, shared objectives, moral. So this is what I think Maris also covered on this actually. We are all humans and we make mistakes. So the culture has to be created like if there is a deficiency in the pipeline, that will help us to grow more, right? Right. So okay, so we know like what we are going to create, but say how before that actually I want to show how the pipeline has to be, right? So it's a separate topic as such actually, how we can create a pipeline in a DevOps world. But it may be a number of ways you can do that, but still actually the common agenda is one thing. You have to follow exactly this this way to create a pipeline, right? So take this here, dev and CI, which is more covered from your build perspective. So every team will have their builds, and followed by the quality testing. That is, it may be starting from the unit testing to the acceptance testing, which is a QA, and deploy, which is deploying to a non-prod environment. Releases, it's more like a the production. And operate is more from the operator, right? So how after the releases has been done, then it's not just we have to handshake with the operations team to make sure all the PIR has been completed, and customers are happy or not, right? So this is the broad category. Within that, if you see, like there are so many things which has to be taken care, right? So from the development perspective, what is the thing we have to take care? Development lead time, how much lead time is taken for doing your development, rework required, artifact, and ideal time is, see, when the commit is sitting in the staging for a long time, if it is not going to the production at all, then it's an efficiency loss. You have invested some money for some development work, which is a commit, which has not been moved to your other environments at all. So that's very clearly tells you something is bad in your priority, right? Your prioritization from the agile perspective, it is prioritization has not happened for those stories. So that will, in the feedback loop, we have to inject saying, okay, prioritization has not been done, and next time we have to be very careful in prioritizing the stories, right? So work in progress and technical depth, that's also very important. And cycle time, so cycle time is like end to end, how much time it takes from the development to the build, right? So these things apply for all the remaining area. If you look at the idle time, yes, it's in the QA. Defect discovery and escalation, which is like whatever defects has been raised from the testing team, that has to be that has to be moved back and created as a story. And yeah, if you go to the deploy, then it's two things which is employment which is important, which is deploy frequency, how frequently you are doing a deployment, and change in the success rate, right? So out of 10 deployments, I say like, okay, 8 of them fail and 2 is succeed, then nobody will say, your pipeline is good. So that has to be pumped in our feedback loop, MTTR. So then going to the releases, release frequency, time, and cost per release. It is a overall from starting to the ending perspective, right? How much time it has been taken for you to do the release, and predictability, right? How just based on the trends, we can predict whether the whether this particular deployment will go through, or we can come with a trend of out of 100 deployments, maybe 2 deployments will fail for a month, right? Then operate side, you can see MTTR, cost, frequency, outages, on call after business hours, and performance utilization. So it's more from the production support perspective, right? So those things has to be taken care as well. So at the end of the day, if you can see, there is a cycle time for each and everything, and visibility, and scalability, right? So these are all the whole things which has to be measured in the pipeline, right? So this is basically where to start from. Each and everything we have told them, but where to start from. So you have to start it from the trunk based development, which is short-lived branches, self-service automation, build quality, and build security. It is upscan, and we can go for sonar cube, which is giving out the build quality testing, and security vulnerability, which can be gone for upscan and Fortify. Fortify is also a good tool for doing that, right? So which has to be included. So next is the testing area. It is automated testing, fidelity of environment, self-service automation, and continuous delivery, right? So if you want everything to be automated, then actually your test case has to be completely converted to the BDD. Then you have to write down test cases for complete end-to-end, and create a package for it. Maybe you can use a Selenium for Selenium is one of the tool actually for the testing purpose. You can create an automated test reports based on the success of that reports. You can directly go to the production without so that's what continuous delivery and deployment is meant. But delivery, still you need a validation before it goes to the production. But if your test case and your acceptance test cases are completely 100%, then you don't need to wait for continuous delivery at all. You can go for a continuous deployment. So all the commits which happen in the production, it will immediately go to the production if all the test cases are passed through, right. So automate all these things. First deployment shouldn't be a prod, and that we all know, pre-prod. Continuous delivery, improve deployment frequency, reliability, and artifact versioning as a core, right? So model the software delivery pipeline, ensure reuse, predictability, visibility, and it's more process oriented and environments oriented, right? So version control, yes, you need to have a version control, monitoring health checks, self-service provisioning, shared infrastructure to drive down OPEX and CAPEX, right? So coming back to this pipeline again, this covers end to end of the pipeline, which tells you are going to use 15 to 20 tools in between for getting all this thing to be successful, right? The simple thing is like starting from the Git, right? Git, you need a Git for just doing the commits, and after that followed by Bitbucket, and Jira for all your stories, or any other tools actually related to Jira. Then coming to build, you can go for Circle CI, Jenkins, TeamCity. Then for deployment, it may be Ansible, Chef. So based on that company's agenda, actually they can select. But still, actually there are it will easily come around 15 to 20 tools for completing the DevOps, right? So I haven't gone up to the cloud side, which is like still there are there are at least five tools which has to be added up, starting from Kubernetes, Swarm, and Docker containerization tools. So the tools are spreaded around, but so previously what's the thing is, like, we will be using only an Excel sheet which will tell me this is the requirement, this has gone to production or not, and which is my release, right? So now, as all the things are getting automated, and I want to find the cycle time and lead time for each and every cycle, right? It is getting difficult, right? So without a centralized tool, managing and getting the metrics from each and every this 15 tools is getting difficult for me, right? So that's what you need to find out a tool which match for your needs, right? So what tools I am so look at this line. This is the exact pipeline look like, right? So developer doing a commit here, and followed by a unit testing, static analysis, packaging the software, acceptance testing, and load performance, and it is going to the release and production, right? So as this whole pipeline is just reflecting like a I think Maris has mentioned this as well. Actually, the whole DevOps things came up from manufacturing industry, where we are trying to mimic their techniques only. Basically, what they have is the assembly line. What they mean is an assembly line where it moves from the stage by stage. Then in case something happens in the one particular stage, then immediately they will try to fix that, and followed some manual intervention. Then automatically the car will get created at the end, right? So starting with the raw materials to the, so same thing, software is we are giving it just we are doing a development. Then after that, actually end of the product has to be in the production mode, right? So that case, actually we are using these 15-20 tools. We don't have a central place to visualize the whole stuff, right? So what we are going to see from centralizing all this data and showing it in the front end, as I saw all the metrics. But what is the major metrics? The frequency of the deployment, tracking the changes, tracking the lead time, tracking the percentage of deployments, mean time to recover, and other performance metrics, right? So centralizing all this single all these tools and keeping it in a single place, it's not that much easy. We don't have a sophisticated tool as such. But what to my personal agenda is like we have almost like 6 tools which are available in the market. But if the question is like, okay, is this can I pick directly one of them and try to create my metric stuff and monitoring stuff? No, there is no straightforward stuff as such. Actually, you have to do there is no sophisticated tool, as there are hundreds of different softwares which are around for DevOps. that too actually each company is having their own agenda of somebody use Ansible, the other side Chef, and some of them are Puppet. So creating one tool for all these hundreds of tools doesn't make sense actually. So instead either company has to pick up one of these things and start exploring actually which fits for them. I will go through each one of them and see like what's the advantage they have provided us, and we have combined multiple tools and start using to it, right? So one is the Elk stack, which is basically the Elasticsearch. Basically, it gets all the data from the tools from the API layer. Then after that, actually, it will try to put everything in the Elasticsearch, indexes. From there, actually, Kibana is the front end which gets the data from there and visualize it. This is the LSTAT. This is more used from the monitoring perspective and metrics of CPUs and hardware. But slowly, the trend has changed where we need to have visualization based on any number. So Elasticsearch is providing a database structure. So we don't need to go for any other non-structured database. Instead, Elasticsearch is the one which is one of the fastest, which can able to query and provide the data immediately, right? So LSTAS, yes, it's one of its breed, and you can start exploring this. Graphite, yes, it's also provide the almost same thing, but again when compared to the Elasticsearch, Graphite is which is less. Keen IO, it is more from the API perspective. So if you are more keen about only just deployment, then go for Keen IO, right? Even Libretto is also the same thing. Keen IO and Libretto almost like share the same space. Datadog, it is more it's not more not DevOps tool as such. Actually, it is more for monitoring and cloud infrastructure monitoring perspective. You can go for it, but for very specific DevOps reporting, you cannot go for the Datadog. Right. So next one is the Hygia. This is one of the tool. It's fit for purpose. Basically, it is created by the Capital One, a bank which is a digital bank, which covers almost very basic need for the DevOps. So it is fit for purpose. Actually, if you start with the beginning, then actually Hygia is exactly what you want, right? Right. So I will show you how the screens will look like. It is a Elk stack, which is a Kibana, where you can see like how frequently you are doing a deployment, and how you can able to see like each and every event which is happening in your deployments, right? So this is one of a graphite screen. It is it's like a Grafana only. Basically, instead of Kibana, they are most probably Grafana will help. So the biggest problem here, people will say like, okay, with this 15 to 20 tools, how I am going to populate all this data into the Elasticsearch, because like the volume of the data is huge. So the recommendation from the industry is going for messaging tool in between. Actually, in between, if you have a messaging layer where all this data is pushed into the messaging layer, then after that, if it is shown in the front end, then actually you don't have Elastic. Mostly, you can go for any MQ related products, right? So personally, to my choice, it is Kafka is making search, exactly fits for that purpose. So this is the last part, which is showing up, the Hygia screen. You can see like how many sprints happen here, how many sprints are you are running here, and how many of them are in progress. And we actually at the bottom you can see how many commits are happened, and build information last 30 days, how many builds have happened, and quality information, which is more from the SonarQube, and the deployment information, how frequently are you doing the deployment, right? So this tool, like, it's exactly fits for the requirement. It is giving out all this lead times as well. But if you go for an enterprise scale, this is not going to fit. You have to go for either Ilk Stash or Grafana, right? So yeah, So that's all from me. So if you have any questions, yeah, you can raise it now.
Thanks, Prakash, for your wonderful talk. I have a question. So you mentioned about Hygia. So is it available as a freeware, or what is that? Is it how I can use that?
Hygia is a open source. So basically, it was given by Capital One. It is a digital bank. Then after that, actually, slowly they feel like they want to create it as a community edition, and they open sourced it. So now it is a complete open source. You can download and modify according to your purpose.
Fantastic. Thanks, Prakash.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks, Prakash. Hearing none of the questions, let us move to the next session. So next session is shift left testing in DevOps way from Srini Kota. He is working for United Health Group, and I'm going to Srini Kota. I'm going to give you as a host, and the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you. Hope. Hello, everyone. I'm Srini Kota, working as a project manager in United Health Group for a significant program, and I have versatile experience with quality engineering, ranging from functional testing, automation, to performance and security. And today, I'll demonstrate on how shift left testing can be adopted or practiced in the DevOps. So if you see this slide, so what comes, to your mind if you see the picture? Okay. See, to me, it's an opportunity and a ownership. See, how I look at this one as the way it is shifting to the left. See, in many industries, in many businesses, if you see whether it is banking or healthcare or insurance or whatever it is, organizations are moving in an aggressive way where they want to tap the opportunity at the earliest in the market. Maybe with the trending technologies, emerging technologies, or the practices. So they want to drive, they want to deliver the results in terms of the customer satisfaction or in terms of the products, whatever it is. So that's how shift left has been practicing for almost, more than 20 to 25 years from now in a manner where it is getting significance. See, opportunity, when I say, if I am working in a particular fashion, but I see if I can go fast and if I can take it as early as possible, it's an opportunity to me. It's me means it's for the organization. Similarly, if I take the ownership at the early, so obviously the delivery of the results and the delivery of the product or project or what are the quality, so that will always makes matters for the organization. Early involvement in any particular activity is very, very important when we are working towards getting maximized quality results. I'll explain, in the consequent slides, what are the benefits of moving to shift left. And overall, I see this is an opportunity as an innovation on the practices. See, everybody has their own practice, or some people might practice the defined market strategies. But I would say moving to shift left is an innovative practice, I can say, to get the results in a quality manner as early as possible and speed to the market. We'll move to next one. Here, I make a comparison between the traditional way of SDLC and moving the shift left of testing in a SDLC. In most of the SDLC cycles, especially in the waterfall, we see the phases in a manner where requirements gathering or requirements capturing comes first by the business analysts, with the product owners, or with the project stakeholders or clients, and then they analyze the requirements, and then they plan to design, and they do the development, and then comes the testing. So if you found a defect or a bug, whatever you call, in the testing phase, it costed so much of time, so much of effort. In turn, it's a wastage to the project. In turn, it's an additional burden to the project or the product. So that's where shift left testing has come into the place to reduce. I can't say to eliminate to the 100%, but it can reduce the effort in the early stages. Thus, it helps in many ways, by reducing the efforts, by reducing the costs, by saving the time in many ways. See how the testing has moved from testing to requirements phase. So there are many activities we can do at every phase which are related to the testing. If you see the requirements phase, we can have the reviews, we can have the validations, we can have the proof of concepts, and in the analysis, based on the results what we get from the requirements, we can analyze the feasibility, we can analyze what to have and what not to have, and in the design, based on the outcomes from the previous stages, we can validate the design based on the feasibility or compatibility, whatever it is, and architectural designs. And so many types of validations and testings can be done at every phase. And when you come to development, you can do unit testing, you can do so many reviews with the tools. And that's where actual testing comes, like end-to-end testing, integration testing, all these things in many flavors. Maybe it is functional testing, automation testing, or security testing, or performance testing. So that's how shiftless testing has helped the organizations in many ways. And here, the benefits of the shift left testing. So it's very cost effective, thus by saving the amount, saving the budget of the project or the product. And it also helps in the good coverage of the testing. See how it covers. So if you can find out in the early stages itself that, okay, these are the features, or these are the scenarios, or these are the user stories, or these are the functional aspects that can be tested, so it will be like more of the coverage you can do by the end of the testing. And this helps for better team collaboration, where you involve with multiple teams. Maybe it's business analysts, maybe it is development teams, maybe it is the backend architects or backend teams. So you'll have a better team collaboration, which helps in getting the quality results. And faster time to market. If you can bring up the product or the project faster than anybody into the market, it helps the sales, it helps the revenue in many ways for the organizations. And also it saves time, as I mentioned earlier, and resources for the project or for the organization. And defects can be detected early from the first stage itself, from the requirements phase itself, where it can be fixed there and there, so that it will help the organization in multiple ways, like less efforts, the budget can be saved to some extent, and the quality can become to the maximum, and the team's collaboration is good, so that you will have the better productivity among them as well. And that's basically about shift left, why the shift left is being adopted, and what are the benefits of the shift left. Now, as many of you know, I mean, because DevOps is a buzzword nowadays, and most of the organizations are practicing it. So many phases. So it's nothing but continuous integration and continuous delivery. So basically, these are the phases mostly we see in the DevOps: plan, coding, building, and testing, where this comes as part of the development side. And coming to the operation side, where we have release, deploy, monitor, and operate. So coming to the DevOps principles. So most of you know it, comms. What comes to comms? I would say DevOps is a culture. How should we adopt? What DevOps mentions? It's a culture where people and process first. So people is very important, and of course the process as well, how we operate. And automation. So many organizations nowadays are moving towards automation, automating the tasks wherever it is possible, to reduce the effort, to save the time, to save the money, which can be possible at any level. So with the automation, tools become important pieces in the automation frameworks. So whatever the practice you follow, whatever the domain you are, so automation is becoming vital nowadays in any organization. Maybe it is IT, or maybe it is healthcare, or maybe it is finance, wherever it is. And coming to the lean, it's just a minute. Coming to the lean, we want to minimize the team size, or we want to eliminate the activities which are not that much value. The reason is, if you spend more effort, if you spend more amount of money in the activities which are not much worthy when you assess, so it's of not much profits to the activities what you are doing. Maybe it is a project or the product or the organization or any activity as part of your work. So that's where lean helps which is also a very significant principle of DevOps culture. And finally, a measurement. It is very, very important. The reason is, if you don't measure yourself, where you stand, you don't know how you are in the market. You don't know what is your value. So measurement is very, very important always. See, even if you write some exams, you will measure yourself. Okay, how I stand, whether I'm in A+ grade or whether I stood first, so that you can improve based on your learnings, based on your failures from the measurements. So measurement is very much important, always, in a frequent manner. And sharing is also a significant principle of DevOps, which is very critical. So sharing of ideas or sharing of problems definitely helps anywhere, if it is professional or personal, especially in the way where you practice in the, IT. Most of us are into IT now. So we have to share the ideas. Maybe it is a new technology or a new framework or a new tool to improve the productivity, so that you will get some suggestions, you will get some directions or mentoring to make it effective than your way of thinking. Because we might think in a particular way, but others might think in different ways. So that if you can share and discuss, so that it will help you to get the better one. And also the problems, concerns, risks, so that you may not get the solution to yourself in an effective way for the task or for the risk or for the issue or for the challenge what you have, but some others can give effective solution which can help in a better way. So sharing also very important in terms of ideas and problems. So these are the 5 significant principles of DevOps, which helps adopting the DevOps in an effective manner. So we have to practice these in our DevOps practice of the projects or the products or whatever we do. Now, based on the DevOps principles and shift left testing, here what we can do in every phase of DevOps, what we do, continuous integration, continuous delivery. So as I mentioned earlier, planning is the primary activity where we start with the development. Here, where we moved the testing to the extreme left, which is the requirements. So here in the planning, we have to analyze and prioritize the requirements. So prioritization also very important. So prioritization depends on various factors, which is very, very important, and also which is business critical to the product owner or to the customer. And once we analyze, once we prioritize the requirements, we have to prepare a report. Okay, these are my prioritized requirements and these are the business critical requirements I have to work out. And based on that, we have to plan our testing strategy. So this is particularly confined to testing. This particular shift left testing is particularly confined to testing. So I mentioned only testing terms. And we have to plan it based on the requirements, and we have to go with the strategy on how we operate and how we execute these requirements in the planning phase. And next comes development as part of a development phase, where we have to do the review of the source code. Maybe it is manual, maybe it is tools. This source code review can happen for multiple activities. Maybe it is for functional stuff, or maybe it is for performance stuff, or maybe it is for security stuff. There are various tools you can do at this phase, and where you can integrate this particular development phase with pipelines as well, with a couple of tools such as Jenkins, and you can do source code reviews with Sonar Cubes for security analysis, static code analysis, and you can use JMeter, Gatling, OpenSTA, which are open source tools, and also for the API testing, which is a micro level during the development phase, and also unit code testing, JUnit. So these can be tested individually and also can be integrated with the pipelines with the help of Mavens, Jenkins, or whatever it is, based on the tools what we adopt. And next comes is actual end-to-end testing at a feature level or a user story level or a scenario level, whether it's functional testing or performance testing or security testing, such as for functional testing, we might use automation tools such as Selenium and also HP UFT. So many tools are there in the market. So whatever we want, we can use. Even for mobile, we can use Appium. And for performance testing, as I mentioned, we can use open source tools such as JMeter, Gatling, OpenSTA, and commercial tools. You can go like HP LoadRunner, Performance Center, and you have IBM tools, you have SmartBay tools, you have NeoLoad. So many tools are there in the market, and which can be even integrated in the pipelines. And for security vulnerability testing, we can have 45 scans from the HP, and also from the open source side, we have implemented Gauntlet. I'll show you, in the next slides, what are the tools available for what purpose. And we can integrate that with Jenkins pipeline, and we can execute automatically whenever the development is done and the committed, and it is when it is deployed. And for regression testing and UAT, we can even do Selenium for the automation of the functional aspects. And also from the configuration side, you can check it by using some scripts, which is an automated manner, and which can even have it in the pipelines. And when you are executing these things concurrently, parallelly, you can see the application performance, you can validate, and you can monitor through some tools such as Splunk, New Relic, Dynatrace, and also from the security side as well for any vulnerabilities online. So this way it helps. This particular life cycle, this particular DevOps model helps in executing the testing from the starting of the phase, from the development to operations in a continuous manner, which is a continuous manner. So when you develop the pipelines, once you have your activity, so whenever you deploy the code, so automatically the pipelines will execute and the testings will done, so that the issues can be, the defects can be identified at the early stages in the early involvement, and whenever you have some fixes, so that the product quality can be come out early, which can save time, which can save money, which can save efforts to the organization with a better collaboration. And these are a couple of tools or frameworks that can be adopted for various purposes. Most of you might know. So Appium is for mobile automation testing, and Gatling is for performance testing, and Gauntlet is for security testing which is an open source one, and HPUFT is for functional testing, JMeter is for performance testing, JUnit is for unit testing, Selenium is for automation testing, where you have Jenkins for build pipelines, SonarQube is for scannings, security scans, Maven is for builds, Performance Center is again for performance testing, New Relic is for monitoring, Jira is for test management, Splunk is for production monitoring. So these are a couple of tools, but there are so many in the market. So these are quite popular. So you can adopt based on your purpose in your DevOps practice for the testing based on your activity, and you can create the scripts, you can create the pipelines, and you can execute in a continuously. So I would say continuous testing, which is a shift left manner as part of continuous integration and continuous delivery. And what we have done with our practices. So we have executed a couple of tools with different flavors. So automation testing, what we have created for a couple of our scenarios. So we have created end-to-end workflows, and we implemented that workflow through Selenium and through Jenkins as a pipeline. For the business features, whatever we have identified the significant program. And whenever we need a test, we just execute the pipeline so that it's a workflow where it will go hand in hand until we get the results. So when we found the issues, so we immediately report to the development team, they fix it. And it's a similar activity, continuous integration and continuous delivery, where the continuous testing is helping to get the product quality. And performance testing, we have implemented a couple of API testing scripts with the help of JMeter and Gatling. And for the UI as well, we have created JMeter scripts and we implemented that in the pipelines. And whenever the build triggers, so we created a pipeline such a way that whenever the build triggers, I mean build fix happens or new build happens, so we automatically, the testing scripts will execute and we get the results. So we made the automated way as part of continuous testing whenever for the continuous integration and continuous delivery as well here. And for similarly for security testing, as I mentioned, Gauntlet, which is an open source framework we have used for a couple of purposes. Maybe it is API security, or maybe it is DB security, or maybe it is network security. So this Gamma, Nmap, curl, and Arachne, which are the hooks for the Gauntlet platform. And we implemented this framework for the features identified, maybe a couple of APIs. And we created the pipeline. And in a similar way, whenever we have some new build, and automatically this pipeline executes and gives us the vulnerability assessment results. So this way we helped in multiple ways for the automation, for the performance and security. We covered for a significant program, and what we achieved is we saved time, maybe for development time. I mean, during the development of the scripts and during the development of the pipelines, it might be a one-time effort, but every time we are saving most of the time and most of the effort, and we are trying to reduce the manual intervention with the help of the continuous integration, continuous delivery through continuous testing from the starting phase itself. Development phase, maybe the planning phase might not be too much technical, where we do the reviews and where we identify the prioritizations, all this stuff, but from the development phase till it gets to the production, I mean, which is a hand-in-hand activity. So that we saved most of revenue and even in some K dollars. I can't say the numbers here, but we saved some K dollars, and that helped us to make it effective. And I'm very happy for practicing the DevOps in my current organization for my practices. So that's all from me. Do you have any questions?
Thanks, Srinikota, for the session. I have a quick question.
Yes.
So you mentioned like you save some cost in your organization, right?
Correct.
So do you have any suggestion to save more cost for the organization?
Yeah, still, I mean, whatever we are doing, right, we have to be more effective. Still, we need to reduce the manual effort, and we need to do some more automation where, I mean, we are having still some bits of pieces where we need to still automate. So if it is 100% automated one, definitely it will save more. And also we are trying to make it socialized across not only our program, across the organization. So this is confined to our program as of today. So we are trying to move it. That's what I'm saying, sharing. And that's what I'm saying, automation as part of the DevOps principles. And lean, where we are trying to reduce the non-significant activities. So if we can implement all these principles effectively in the way what we do, so definitely it will save more than what we are doing now.
Thanks, Srini.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Hi, Srini.
Yes.
Hi, this is Gopal here.
Okay.
You were talking about it, DevOps, in terms of how we can do cost savings for our organization.
Yes.
So here, can you share one small example, like how do you do the testing, check in the code, and how do you do the testing through the tool? And so finally, how do you integrate and deploy your code? Maybe one small example if you can suggest that.
So if you take the performance testing, right? So during the development phase, we have taken the code and we have created the API scripts with the JMeter, and we have used Jenkins. So in the Jenkins, we have some plugins related to performance. Okay, we mapped the scripts path in the Jenkins and we created a pipeline there, right? So as part of the pipeline. So, and prior to the execution, we have created the coding stuff basically. So whenever the development is happened and they deploy the code, they have the activity. So we tagged our activity to that. So as part of the pipeline. So how generally the automation guys do. So automatically it reduces. I mean, automatically whenever the task is completed, the deployment is completed code, and next activity as part of the pipeline is our performance testing. And this is specifically for performance pipeline, not part of the total one for all the testings. So it will automatically execute. So if I have to execute manually, right? So I have to go and I have to execute. I should not be there. Okay. So I should not open the framework. I should not see for the environment and all these things. So whenever the environment is up and whenever based on the new deployment, so my scripts also execute and gives me the results. So the manual intervention is reduced here, so that even I am sleeping, maybe not in my office hours, it automatically works. That's how we make the things here. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, if no questions, I'm giving to DevOps Union.
Thanks, Rini.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rini, for your session. Let us go to the next session. Next session is from Abhishek Chowdhury. He is going to talk about blameless DevOps. So he is from United Health Group. So Abhishek, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maris, and thank you very much, Srini, for the nice session. Please let me know if you can hear me clearly.
Yes, Abhishek, we are able to hear you. Unable to see the screen.
Great. So, great. Thank you so much. So, hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Abhishek Chaudhary, and I am a technology manager working with United Health Group, and I have had the good fortune to work on DevOps projects, and we are budding along the transformation now. And I would talk about, now that we understand DevOps, I'll touch a little bit upon the existing topics and then understand what do we mean by blameless DevOps. All right. So before we understand, the blameless culture, so why did DevOps come into picture, right? What were the problem statements in the world which made us think that we need DevOps, right? There were multiple, when we had multiple components in the architecture, or the architecture was designed in a complex way, or we had a need of having multiple deployments, right, into various environments, or we've had multiple customers who need the similar kind of products to be deployed within the same period of time to their particular environments. I'll take a small example of where we saw that. So we developed a product which was for US commercial public sector, right, wherein we had different states, and each state had a requirement of using the same portal in their customized way. So we have to make sure that we are doing continuous deployments to multiple customer environments without affecting the requirements, and making sure that whatever the client or the customer requires, we deliver them. So overall, when we talk about rapid changes or frequent changes, and when we talk about stability, then we had one more issue I would want to bring to the table is we've had, a lot of opportunity areas in terms of the existing software development life cycle. There have been teams, various teams, dev, dev, QA, to name a few. They've been working on silos, and then the integration used to happen. There was no inspect and adapt mechanism, and frequent deployments. So that is why the need of DevOps came into picture, right? So we can say DevOps is, like all the good speakers have done before I joined, it's a communication, collaboration, and integration between processes and tools, right? Talking about the solution, we've heard the good things about it, and we understand the comes, and here the understanding is it's not development and operations team put together. DevOps requires both teams to take more responsibility for the entire system to get delivered instead of working in silos. So what we can do is we can embed the knowledge either wise, from project to operations and operations to the project, and we can extend the deliveries to production while embedding the feedbacks more frequently to the project. So when we talk about DevOps, it's very important for us to have, or to move towards the DevOps cycle. We first understand what is agile development. So the first and foremost requirement, or in these modern era, we believe that we have to first understand what is agile development. right? So agile development in itself is a conceptual framework, right, where we use the inspect and adapt mechanism, wherein we utilized the thorough practices for lightweight methodologies where the changes are vague, unknown, or changing too many times. So to make sure that we have an iterative model where we do frequent inspect and adaptation and move through smaller chunks of cycle, we use the agile development, right? So when we are into agile development, moving to the continuous integration, it is very important. In this modern era, not integrating continuously is very expensive. If you don't follow a continuous approach, you will not have longer periods between the integration. And to make continuous integration happen, we need certain practices, right, to integrate the codes into shared repositories, several times a day. So what that will help us with is, we won't need to wait for longer periods for the integrations. It will increase the visibility, right? We can catch the issues early and nip them in the bud itself, right? And spend less time debugging. So we can stop waiting to find out when the code is going to work, because we are already integrating and finding that out. We have certain various tools to do that. We've been talking about it all the way along. Then moving on to continuous testing, where we actually automate the tests, like Srini was talking about, as part of the software delivery pipeline, to basically obtain feedback on the business risks associated to the release candidate. I would, what I have seen through the projects that we, have built a pipeline from the dev to the monitoring piece is, for the key elements of continuous testing, we do certain risk assessments and understand or analyze the existing trends associated, right? And then we do requirements traceability, and then try to automate, starting with the automatable portions, and move ahead. Next, so when we talk about the whole cycle of DevOps, it's very important for us, starting from agile development to continuous integration to continuous testing, to make sure the product is of good quality. Once that is done, we are moving to continuous delivery or speed to market, or improved efficiency with which we are moving to market. So we have certain terms like continuous delivery and deployment. So basically the process of teams producing software in short cycles, I would say, ensuring that reliable software can be released anytime, is what continuous delivery is all about. So there are two terms as I was talking about. Sometimes it's confused with continuous deployment, but there's a minor difference in that. When we talk about continuous delivery and deployment, the continuous deployment means that every change is automatically deployed to production. But usually highly mature teams do that. When we talk about budding teams or teams moving towards DevOps transformation, we usually use continuous delivery, which means that team ensures every change can be deployed to production, but they choose when to do it, usually due to business reasons. So like I said, so this is more on the lines of how we are, continuously integrating, testing, delivering, and giving the feedback. Now the actual topic, or the culture, where we understand how DevOps, or how it can help us, right? So help me, I've put in a picture here which talks about a particular release has gone bad, right? And we have a site down for a very long time. So what's the first thought that comes to our mind? So as you can see, the people are pointing fingers at each other, right? So the existing mindset or the existing software development life cycles or the existing culture that has been prevalent in the organization or the industry for a very long time is blaming individuals for failures. That's what has been the culture that we have embraced over a period of time. We blame others and others blame us when we fail, right? So we have come to accept criticism in the face of failure, because of which what happens is this embeds fear in our unconscious minds and affects our ability to innovate, right? So although the processes, look objectives, the finger pointing, when it begins immediately, people go in their own shells and they stop thinking. They become more on the lines of order takers or instruction takers instead of, being proactive, being fearless in the way they want to do the delivery. That is how the movement called DevOps come into picture and tries to embed the culture, blameless culture. So to understand blameless culture, we have to understand the basic ways how a DevOps, practices. As we understand, there are 3 ways to DevOps, which we primarily look into for the completion of the CI/CD pipeline, or the improvement of the efficiency or the speed to market. We've been hearing from the speakers about the systems testing, thinking, and moving from left to right, but we need to understand what it is, right? So let's try to understand one way at a time. So when we talk about the first one, system flow from left to right, the first point or the main point behind this first principle is about having the work flowing from left to right as fast as possible, right? From business through development to operations and ultimately to customer, where the value is actually created. So for that to happen, we have to have a systems thinking, right? We talk about systems thinking. We need to understand or emphasize the performance of the entire system as opposed to the performance of a specific silo of work. So that can be seen as a large division, and that is what a holistic or a high-level systems thinking comes into picture. Then we move on to amplifying the feedback loops. So what does that mean? So here the focus is on creating both the number of feedback loops that you have in your flow, or you need to understand from right to left how it has been and how faster you're getting feedback. So one, you're moving from left to right, delivering something, and then you're coming back from right to left at the same time with regular feedback loops. What it overall helps us is with fostering a culture where constant experimentation and learning is encouraged, right? Here people acknowledge the way that we do mastery through repetition and practice. It doesn't come overnight, right? So we have been taking a lot of synonyms or terminologies from manufacturing, from operations, right? But still in technology as well, we want to have well-established processes so that, it becomes, even if it's not completely predictable, we have certain processes and procedures in place to help us succeed as an overall project or a product. So that happens with inspection and adoption, right? So these were the certain DevOps ways. So when we talk about mostly on the lines of a blameless culture, let's move on and try to understand how we can relate to it. Right. So now, as you can see, the culture in itself talks about embracing failure, right? It is Failure is not something which we can keep fearing on, right? It is something which can be taken as a challenge or an opportunity area to learn. We have to embrace it, understand it, and move forward. So when failure occurs, our goal is not basically to name, blame, or shame the person's resources or the tools that have caused it. Instead, what I believe is our goal should be to maximize our learnings from it, understand how the accidents occurred, equip ourselves to create the measures to prevent it from happening again, and we can enable quicker detection and recovery by embracing it. So when we talk about the blameless culture, DevOps certainly doesn't believe in blaming individuals, but instead builds a system that catches defects during the development life cycle itself, right? So people associated with a transformation, or for that matter, a mature DevOps team, they don't blame others for the failures, as they put the measures and checks in place to capture the errors in the initial stages itself. And they do not, for example, the development stages, I would say, and they do not place bets in the production. Oh no, it's not in production now, we'll start thinking of it. No. So this way of working basically allows the developers to come out fearlessly, try out new things, and come out on top. So why I have been emphasizing on a blameless culture is we've been trying to do that in our organization, and trust me, we are getting there. So what is happening is when you don't blame others for what they've done, or when you take a collective responsibility, there's a sense of shared responsibility where the entire team collaborates and produces results as one unit, rather than finger pointing being me or you and all that. All right. So when we understood the basic definitions of what DevOps is trying to do as a movement, it is a culture shift. Like when Agile came into picture, we used to say, right? Now it has gone one step ahead, and we talk about DevOps cultures where we embrace and understand failures and work towards it and be blameless. So as you might know, we've as part of the amplifying the feedback loops, we do postmortems or root cause analysis, right? Where we understand what happened, right? What actions had taken place, right? Because of which the issues or the problems have come. So I have a basic definition around here. I'll not really go through the definition. It was the CTO of Etsy, John, who helped us understand what having a blameless postmortem means, right? What they can do is, to understand it, they used basically two terminologies, right? They kept the people anonymous, they took responsibility as a group, and the two metrics that mattered the most from the people whose actions have contributed to an accident or an issue was time to detect and time to resolve, when we try to understand that, right? So they collectively look at the group, what could have they done to detect the things or the issues sooner? So answer is not always something in the operating environment. It could be, better development, better testing, better collaboration of the tools, or better creation of the pipeline, better injection of the plugins wherever required, or what could have we done to resolve this faster? It could be a process issue. It could be, delayed approvals for the existing softwares and whatnot. So we need to understand how long it did take for us to decide when it started, and how we can, move towards it. So from where I come from, we've been trying to imbibe this culture, not just at the project level, but at a bigger release train level, and moving towards a portfolio. right? So where we gather details from various perspectives on failures and ensure that we do not single people out. I understand in today's, fast-paced world, it's easier for us, right? It's basically easier for us. So, oh man, there's an issue. This developer did not do it properly, right? He could have imbibed, we could have increased the code coverage, build gatekeeper, percentages. In Sonar, I need 90% gatekeeper builds, right? Not less than that. No, they kept it only 80%. That's why we are getting issues in QA. No, we do not single people out. We take collective action. We talk about it at the high level at the beginning of the ceremonies itself, and help or empower employees with authority to improve the safety, basic their contributions to failures. By enabling and encouraging people who do mistakes for the first time, let them be the experts on educating the rest of the organization, right? And do not make that in the future. We can also accept that humans can decide to make actions or not, right? That judgment of the decision lies in the hindsight, I would say, or that lies basically in the retrospection. So when we talk about blameless postmortems or moving towards a blameless culture, we need to understand what actions they took at that time, what were the effects of that, what were the expectations, the assumptions, and making them feel free that they can give the detailed account of that without any fear of retribution or punishment. So that is how we move towards a blameless culture. All right. So I believe that's all I had for today. Please do let me know in case you have any questions.
Thanks, Abhishek.
One question for Abhishek. Able to hear me, Abhishek?
Sure.
Yeah, hi.
I have. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just wanted to know. So this seems to be more of a prevention from the development side. Okay. Now, how did you handle from the customer side? Did you prepare them, or did you provide them any change management, or kind of tell them that, look, there could be some issues like that? Because usually sometimes customer starts bombarding. Okay. So how did you handle this? What did you from the customer perspective? Yeah.
Right. No, that's a very good question, actually, because we usually, used to take it to the product development life cycle level. But what about the requirement cycle? Sometimes I understand, and there's no one statement answer for that. But what we have done is, I'll take an example of how I did it in one of the US commercial public sector projects. We've had this experience in one of the states, and we did not want to repeat that particular experience in another of the US states. So what we have done is, we have taken a step back. We, from our end first, before even having a discussion with the requirement customer, right? What we've done is, we have done a requirement feasibility or the analysis with our business and the sales team together, and understood where the previous customers faced issues, right? And then we had this business of the salespeople first talk to the business, help them understand what the issues they have faced in the previous states, and help them understand what the issues could happen with this particular, implementation again. So we requested them to keep an open mind, and they help them explain the kind of culture that we are, embedding in the system. And that really helped. So sometimes you don't have that option, specifically with technology services companies. You have the customers starting bombarding you with requirements, and they want it done in no time. For that to happen, my sincere suggestion would be, before even we get into that loop, if we have an option, we set up a meeting, a pre-meeting, to help set the context, or set up a meeting wherein we help them understand this is what we are looking towards, and help more regular connects. Instead of one type connect along with your leadership with them, I would suggest, before even we get into the mode of requirement gathering, we have to have them understand the roadmap and the vision to be moving towards the embracing the failure culture. I know that's not, I cannot, I am sure that I cannot answer that in one statement, but this is something which we have did in the past and it has worked. We made sure that even before the customer comes to us, if you have that opportunity, we had the business and sales teams talk to them, help them understand how the issues were in the previous projects and what we can help them to improve.
Yeah, that does help. So basically, you're setting some expectations of the customer so that they understand what's up to come. So I think
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. You're most welcome.
Thanks, Abhishek. I understand that this is blameless culture and blameless DevOps is more about culture. So I just have a question. So
Right.
humans are very complex, right? So generally, it's more about general question. So the generalization, like people tend to blame someone for the mistake. So what kind of suggestions do you have?
Right. So when we talk about that's what we've been discussing, right? So failure is an opportunity to learn, right? When we talk about embracing it, we have to spread that culture from, we have to imbibe that culture at the grassroots level itself, right? For that to happen, we as collective managers or leaders or portfolio level, thought leadership should have an understanding. They imbibe the culture wherein the goal, end of the day, we need to understand the entire project, how it's going in the production. For that to happen, let's have more mechanisms in place. Let's have more cadences and collaborations in place, like Agile is doing these days, right? So instead of just having one meeting, one collaborations, there are stand-ups. We do understand where we, talk about what we did yesterday, what we're going to do today, and there are any issues and all that. But after that, what we have done is in our projects, apart from those meetings, we have set up collaboration discussions. For example, what it has helped us is to help them understand it's not development at all times that keeps holding on to the code, or it's not QA all the time who's waiting for development. We understand sometimes the systems itself, the environment itself is not set up due to various. When we understand we are working towards a larger purpose, when we help them understand the why instead of a how or a what, then we can definitely, embrace this particular culture.
Fantastic. Thanks, Abhishek.
All right. It was very nice talking to you all. And thank you for helping me be fortunate for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhishek. Let us move to the next topic. Next topic is AWS for disaster recovery from Avinash Balasubramanian. He is working for Leica Mobile. Avinash, the floor is yours. I will make you as a host.
Yeah, is it audible?
Yes, Avinash, you are audible now.
Thank you, Maris. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Avinash, working as a cloud engineer in Leica Mobile, Chennai. Let me see the topic about AWS for disaster recovery. Yes, disaster recovery is about preparing for and recovering from a disaster. Any event that has a negative impact on your business continuity could be termed a disaster. This could be hardware or software failure, a network outage, a power outage, or a physical damage to your data centers, like that. Yes, this page shows the types of disaster recovery, natural disasters, security incidents, and the equipment failure and human error. The major part of disaster is due to the human error, according to the report. Yes, why AWS for disaster recovery? Yes, in a traditional physical environment, a typical approach would normally involve the duplication of infrastructure to ensure the availability of spare capacity in a disaster scenario. And a traditional approach to DR involves different levels of offsite duplication of data and infrastructure. Critical business services are set up and maintained on this infrastructure and tested at regular intervals. The disaster recovery environment's location and the source infrastructure should be significant physical distance apart to ensure that a disaster recovery environment is isolated from faults and that could impact the source. Mm, Although cost-effective multi-tenant cloud-based disaster recovery solutions are available in the marketplace, many large enterprises have not yet adopted them. Uh, Limited adoption rate is primarily due to concerns about security, reliability, and performance. AWS allows you to scale up your infrastructure on a self-needed basis. You get access to highly scalable, reliable, secure, fast, inexpensive, and only pay for what you use. For a disaster recovery uh, solution, this results in significant cost savings. It also allows for more agility to change and optimize resources during a DR scenario. Yes, the slide shows AWS saves up to 85% in reduced infrastructure, capital expenditure for servers, storage and networking, and physical data center cost, and the lower ongoing recurring expenses such as co-location charges, power, and maintenance. Increase efficiency for recovery time and recovery point objectives. The significant part of the cloud is only pay for what you use. It is a significant one for cloud. Yes, enterprise challenges and requirements. Here we see 4 points: the challenges and requirements for enterprises. Handling large databases, network integration, rapid spin-off of standby machine images, set RTO and RPO. Handling large databases. Uh, Deploying, replicating, and managing large databases over long distance presents a challenge in cloud computing. Enterprises must exercise care in designing their DR architecture and selecting database deployment location, replication technologies, and database design optimizer for cloud computing, and deduplication strategies for minimizing database sizes. Uh, Network integrations. Uh, it is the cloud computing is need to minimize latency between internal and the cloud-based servers. It is a major challenge. Uh, the latency between the cloud computing and the internal services. Next, integration usually involves deployment of network optimization tools to monitor and manage both internal traffic and traffic between in-house infrastructure and data centers. External bottlenecks are particularly difficult to manage since they may be beyond the control of internal IT staff. IP addressing and network convergence is another challenge that enterprises face, and network hosts have been eased with several AWS solutions such as Elastic IP, VPC, and Route 53, which have made it easier to manage internet addressing across data centers and the cloud. Next is rapid spin-up of standby mission images. In this scenario, minimizing the business disruptions in the event of a disaster requires an architecture that enables deployment of infrastructure resources reserved for rapid recovery. Selection and management of reliable technologies for this purpose is critical for business continuity and cost management. SIP, RTO and RPO. We will look in the next slide what is RTO and RPO. Enterprise level disaster recovery is primarily measured in terms of recovery time objective and the recovery point objective. RTO is a measure of the maximum amount of time within which operations are expected to be resumed after a disaster. RPO is a measure in terms of time of the maximum amount of data can be lost as a result of a disaster. You will see the diagram below. You will easily understand what is RPO. RTO is the maximum amount of time within which operations are expected to be resumed after the disaster. RPO is the maximum amount of data that can be lost as a result of disaster. Here we look the difference between the cloud physical DR scenario and VM DR scenario and AWS disaster recovery scenario. In AWS disaster recovery scenario, we have a minimum RTO and RPO. So that's why we prefer cloud computing AWS for disaster recovery. AWS offers 4 types of disaster recovery. This disaster recovery we will choose based on our business requirements. First is backup and restore, next pilot light, then warm standby, then multi-site. For backup and restore, cost is very low, but the RTO and RPO recovery time objective is high, but the cost is low. Likewise, in the pilot, the RTO and RPO is less compared to the backup and restore, but the cost is high compared to backup restore. And likewise, the same strategy for warm standby and multi-site. In multi-site, the cost is very high, but the RTO is very minimum, only 0 to 5 minutes. We will recover. Just a minute. Yeah, sorry for disturbance. For multi-site, the cost will be more, but the recovery time is within 0 to 5 minutes. We will recover the applications. Let me see a backup and a restore. This is a on-premises infrastructure. This is a AWS disaster recovery. Here is an S3 bucket. We will store your primary. We will store your data, and this is the replication option between on-premises and data and AWS. We will choose the replication options. We will backup the data through the internet or VPN connections or through the AWS import export and AWS storage gateway. Here Amazon S3 is an ideal destination for backup data. Amazon S3 provides a highly durable storage infrastructure designed for mission critical and primary data storage. AWS provides protection of data retention and archiving via versioning in Amazon S3. And Amazon S3 provides a security like multi-factor authentication, and they provide bucket policies and identity and access management. And the S3 provide 99.99% of durability of objects. Transferring data to and from S3 is typically done via the network and is therefore accessible from any location. The AWS import-export service enables transfers of very large data sets by shipping storage devices directly to AWS. AWS import-export is a portable device. The portable device name is like Snowmobile, Snowmobile, Snowball. They are the portable. Uh, they are the portable devices for large data sets to be shipped to AWS. Next is AWS transfers your data directly onto and off to storage devices by using Amazon high-speed internal network and bypassing the internet. For data sets of significant size, AWS import-export is often faster than internet transfer and more cost-effective than upgrading your connectivity. You can use AWS export to migrate data into and out of Amazon S3 bucket and into Amazon EBS snapshots. This method enables an enterprise to use its backup software of choice to replicate data into AWS cloud. In the event of disaster, data could be restored from the cloud back into the in-house resources or made available to EC2 instances on the AWS infrastructure. Additionally, backups of on-site virtual machine images could be restored for DR using the Amazon import function. This method suits enterprises that seek cost savings and can tolerate relatively low RPO requirements and slower recovery time objective. For system running on AWS, customer also backup into the Amazon S3, snapshots of EBS volumes and backups of Amazon RDS, that is a relational database, are stored in Amazon S3. Alternatively, you can copy files directly into Amazon S3, or you can choose to create a backup files and copy them to the Amazon S3. Yeah, here is the steps for backup and restore. Just select an appropriate tool or method to backup your data into the AWS. The tools are, like we said, Amazon AWS import export and Snowmobile, uh, Snowball, or that, and ensure that you have an appropriate retention policy for this data. Yes, the retention policy means what time we will take the backup of the data and we will put into the AWS. We want to create the retention policy. Ensure that appropriate security measures are in place for this data, including encryption and access policies. Yes, the S3 bucket provides the encryption and access policies. Only the person who access can only be accessed. The access policies are given by the IAM and also through the bucket policies. And regularly test the recovery of this data and restoration of your system. Yeah, next scenario is pilot light. Uh, yeah, we have a wordings like one tree makes a million matchsticks, but when the time comes, only one matchstick is needed to burn a million trees. Likewise, the most critical core elements of a system already configured and running in AWS. When the time comes for recovery, you would then rapidly provision a full-scale production environment around the critical code. The pilot-led method satisfies most enterprise environments that require comprehensive backup, relatively fast recovery, and redundancy. A pilot-like solution consists of an up-to-date core infrastructure configured in AWS with the ability to quickly provision a full-scale environment during a recovery process. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Avinas. Thank you for your session. Yeah, so you mentioned about human error. Yeah, so I also agree with that. Thank you for the session. Let us go to the next session. So next session is from Gab, who is going to talk about establishing a secure and scalable DevOps pipeline the AWS way. So he is working for AWS, Amazon, and he is from Singapore. So Gab, I am going to give you, I am going to make you as a host, and the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Gab, I'm able to hear you.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and try and share my screen, and let's see if we can get this working.